think it took us a couple months for everyone to sink in to everyone that we were not going to operate again. We went barely a week and it was rubbing again. So then we knew we were in trouble.
Welcome to In the Parks, an Indiana State Parks podcast. I'm Allison Martin, and I'm excited to tell the stories of these amazing places in the Hoosier State. I think our parks show off the best of Indiana, but there's so much more to them than you might expect. So it's time to go in-depth, to really know the stories and discover what makes each destination unique and valuable as part of Indiana. On In the Parks, you'll learn about the people, legends, and places that formed Indiana's parks in the past and who is writing the story now. Today, we're going back to Spring Mill State Park. On the last episode, we heard all about the nature side of Spring Mill. Today, we're going to focus on the cultural impact of the park and how a small town like Mitchell, Indiana, and an even smaller village like Spring Mill can have a regional and national impact, even an impact that's out of this world. There's a lot of important cultural history at Spring Mill that's right under your nose. The Civilian Conservation Corps was instrumental in building the park. Specifically, there was an African American company that came from Yellowstone to help with infrastructure like roads and campground construction. The bridge that African American Company 539 built is still in use today. You cross it on the way to the Lakeview Activity Center. There's also cultural history at Spring Mill you really can't miss. Of course, I'm talking about the Pioneer Village with the grist mill at the heart of it all. And to really understand the mill, you have to hear from Tom.
My name's Tom Wade. I am the miller down here at Spring Mill. I've been here about 6 years. 3 years I've operated it, 3 years it's been under construction.
Tom gave me a thorough explanation of how the mill works. We'll get some highlights in a moment. And please note, since my interview with Tom happened at the mill during construction, you may hear the drone of machines or the occasional hammer in the background. About 20 minutes into Tom's explanation of how the mill worked, I had to know.
How did you learn how to do all this?
I had about a 45-minute class.
So you don't have like a background in this?
No.
Okay.
I was a truck driver for 40 years.
Okay. But you just somehow got connected to the park and started the same school?
I came down here for a job, and at a job fair, Coletta, the village manager, she says, "You're going to be my miller." So this is where I'm at, which I'm glad, because this is an excellent job being an interpreter down here.
Okay, don't let Tom's modest explanation fool you. There's no way someone could operate this mill without a strong background knowledge of mechanics and an innate understanding of physics. Tom clearly has an engineering mind and a teacher's heart. He understands how it all works and can explain what's going on to people of all ages. And that's what he enjoys about the job.
Really, the cool thing is running a 200-year-old mill. Very few people in their life gets to say that or put that on their resume. Really, it's talking to the people. Here at, we've had people, last year we had people all the way from Norway to Australia.
They came here for
right
this?
Here. Talk to them right here. Japan, China, all over. They come from all over. And you get to talk to all these variable people. You get the school kids coming in for field trips. Kids coming in with the parents. They're just totally fascinated with the mill. I mean, even adults. I've seen adults standing out there watching my water wheel or standing here and watching gears go around for an hour. Just standing there watching.
So let's get into some of the fascinating things about the mill. First, a little history. The area where the mill and Hamer Cave are has moved through a lot of hands over the past 200 years. While there were obviously indigenous people who lived here before the white settlers did, Spring Mill's Pioneer Village focuses on the families who developed the mill. And what's really crazy about this story is how one event halfway around the world affected life in Indiana. This is the butterfly effect in full display. So if I'm understanding all the details correctly, the first white man to settle here was Samuel Jackson. He had a small mill and a log mill as well. Tom shares why this area was such an advantageous place.
And that's another part of the reason why they built a mill here. A lot of people ask, why out in the middle of nowhere? Well, our water here from the creek comes out of a cave. So it's 52 degrees year round. There's no freezing. So they can run year round here. Maybe knock a little ice off of your water wheel, but you could run year round.
So when they found this place, they were probably really excited to realize they could make money year round doing that.
Samuel Jackson is the one that first stopped here. He had heard about it. He was actually a veteran of the War of 1812. He came down here. He got a land grant from the government. He actually squatted here first, and then he got his land grant in 1816. When he got his land grant, he already had his mill running and everything.
But Samuel Jackson left after just a few years.
A lot of people say, if it was that good, why did he move? Well, he had a wife, first child. And if you look up the history of 1816, you'll find out that it's the year without a summer.
Yes, the year without a summer. Ready for this? All the way over in Indonesia the year before, Mount Tambora erupted and it led to a volcanic winter. The lighter particulates created a cloud the size of Australia, blocking the sun and lowering temperatures around the globe, including in Indiana. Even though it happened in 1815, it was affecting the U.S. the following summer.
They erupted, affected the weather here. It actually was snowing here in June, July.
What?
So the corn crops would have been gone.
I've never heard this.
Yeah, well,
That's crazy.
Yeah. So the corn crops would have been gone. 1816, he would have been good for the year of 1816. For the year of 1817, he would have had nothing to grind. Now he's got a wife that's wanting to go back home. He's may not have no crops here, so he sold to the Bullets. Now they built the mill in 1817, which gave another year to grow crops.
So because of a volcano erupting halfway around the world, this mill exists right now in the state that it's in.
And you have to think, too, that they didn't have the Weather Channel. They had no clue what was actually going on.
From Samuel Jackson to the Bullets. Tom told me about them before I heard about the year with no summer. So when you hear this clip, you can really see how the Bullets were probably able to get a good deal on the land.
The mill itself was built in 1817, built by the Bullets out of the Louisville area. They came up, bought the property off of Samuel Jackson. He had a log mill up closer to the cave, and when they came up, took a look, he had plenty of water, and they was more or less what we would call today property flippers. They was buying up land across southern Indiana and resell it. They bought the property, built the mill in 6 months. Had about 300 men working on it. So.
What were they using it for originally?
They was using it to grind corn, was their main product, because that was the easiest to grow at that time. Later on, they did do wheat. Once they got it up and running, actually these stones over here, the big two burr stones here, they are the original stones from 1817, imported from France. They are quartz. They used them about 100 years before they wore them out.
Much of the mill is still fairly original, although many of the gears and shafts were rebuilt in the 1930s when the park began.
Well, the building here is original. All your beams, I've heard they replaced one beam, and I don't know which one it is. Your stone.
Well, the stone's beautiful too.
So yeah, it's they quarried here. So yeah, to build this in 6 months, it would have took a large group, about 300 is what they say. You'd had your stone workers, your quarry workers, your wood workers, dropping trees. So yeah,
it's a huge enterprise.
From the Bullets, the mill was sold to the Montgomery family, who officially named the village Spring Mill in 1831.
The Bullets built the mill, then they sold it to the Montgomerys in 1823, and then the Montgomerys sold it to the Hamers. When the Montgomerys owned it, they actually hired the Hamer brothers to run the mill for them. And then the Hamers bought it off of the Montgomerys, and then they operated it until 1832 to about 1882. So
it's been in a lot of different families' hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and then the Turleys bought it, then the Lehigh bought it, and then the state got it.
Yeah.
So.
And this is cool. When Lehigh sold the village and the mill to the state park, they did it for just $1. The cement company Lehigh, now called Heidelberg, still owns the water rights to everything flowing out of Hamer Cave, which they use in their cement making process. And the water is what brings us to how the mill actually works. The flume brings water from Hamer Cave to the mill. The cave is up the hill, so gravity does all the work. Originally, the flume went all the way into the cave. Today there are several dams, but the flume is where it begins. Tom said a lot of people come and ask, where's the electric motor? They're surprised that even a little bit of water can power the entire mill, but it does. The 24-foot wheel is called an overshot wheel because the water from the flume comes over the top and drops into buckets on the other side. Here's Tom explaining how it all works. Now, I'm confident all my engineers who are listening will be able to visualize this easily, but for the rest of us, myself included, I recognize that if you've never seen a mill, this may feel like listening to someone read a manual. But use your imagination and think about high school physics class.
Okay.
So theoretically, when it's working, where does it all start from? The water?
Open up the gate, the water's already on up at the dam, comes down, goes over the water wheel. As it does, it turns the main shaft here, which is what they just put in. It's not in here yet, but there's a king gear. Right there where the shaft is, if you look a little further, there's what they call a lantern gear with the spokes in it.
Okay.
That king gear turns that. Then as it turns this lathe shaft with the cogs on it. I put it in and out of gear right here. I can move this. If you look down in the basement, it turns this gear, goes down, it turns about 5 more gears in the basement, which ends up turning the shaft, what they call the damsel, down into the basement. Turns my upper stone. My water wheel does about 8 to 10 RPMs. My upper stone does about 80 to 100.
Just the amount of physics and cogs and wheels and gears is really interesting.
Puts out about 25 horse and 20 to 25,000 foot-pounds of torque.
Physics, right? I'm really wishing I had taken that class now. Okay, so what is it grinding? Corn or wheat? The corn would come down into what's called a shoe, like a trough, feed into the eye of the stone, and the flow could be adjusted as needed. Then the upper stone turned to grind the corn on the stationary bottom stone. You can see some of the older stones in the mill, but they have new ones now.
Now, these stones we have in place now, they are granite. They came out of North Carolina. Each one weighs about 3,000 pounds apiece.
That's crazy.
Let's remember, this mill was built in 1831. I am still in awe that the stones were assembled and placed without modern equipment. And with such heavy stones and complicated gears and shafts, you can see the importance of focus, details, and making sure everything is aligned. Even the corn had to be cleaned before running it through the mill. Think about how a small pebble could throw off the stones while grinding. We actually have a common expression today because of the focus needed to run a mill.
You've heard the old saying, keep your nose to the grindstone.
Uh-huh.
Actually, what the saying means is keep your nose towards the grindstone. You listen to all your gears. You can feel the vibration. You use all this to run your mill. I mean, if you hear it slowing down, you know you may be giving it too much corn or not enough water.
So nose to the grindstone is, in other words, face it, pay attention to what it's doing?
Pay attention to it. Don't be distracted, because if you let your stones run dry, you will damage your stone.
Tom also explained that without the right attention to water, the stone can get really hot, enough that the wheat and corn dust could catch fire. In a wooden building full of dry grain, this was a real danger, and mills burnt down because of a lack of focus. What do they do with the corn? The mill was being used to sell it across the country.
If you're running a mill this size, it's not just for your family. You're also selling it to make money off of it?
Oh, yeah. You would have sold it. You would have bartered with it. Since they did have a distillery here, a lot of the corn went to the distillery. There was probably more money in whiskey than cornmeal.
Right.
So, yeah, and they actually sold their cornmeal and their whiskey here in the village. This was a working village. And all of this product they would put on flat-bottom boats, took to New Orleans 2 to 4 times a year. They would have done maybe 1 to 2 trips a week down to Louisville, back and forth in wagons. So it is a local village, but they was selling.
Yeah, they're making an impact more than just here in Indiana.
Yeah. Once they got to New Orleans, they would sell their product, actually rip the boats apart, sell the lumber. Way I understand, a lot of your mansions and buildings in New Orleans was made out of riverboat. They would buy a horse, catch a stagecoach, steamboat, and come back home. So while they was making their trip down, which touch 6 to 8 weeks, they'd be building another boat for the next trip.
Yeah,
so,
just keep rotating through.
Yeah.
I thought that was so interesting. Okay, so what actually happened to this mill? Why did it need a total renovation? We met Spring Mill State Park property manager Mark Young on the previous episode. Here he's explaining what went on.
This was as close to a full break as we could get. It was late October. and you met with Tom. He gave us a call, said, hey, something's wrong. He says, this first gear, he says, is rubbing on the floor. And I said, well, that shouldn't happen. So we went down, took a look at it, and we decided, you know what, let's just shave it down the floor a little bit and just give it some more, maybe it's just getting loose. We went barely a week, and it was rubbing again. So then we knew we were in trouble. So we took a really close look at it, and basically the best way I can describe it is the shaft, the main shaft, went sway back on us. It started settling right in the center. And so if you went outside and looked at the water wheel, you could see the top of the water wheel tilting back toward the mill. So then we knew we were in trouble. I think it took us a couple months for everyone to sink in to everyone that we were not going to operate again, and then to work really hard to try to raise the funding.
The mill renovation began with one thing that needed fixed. But like a typical home renovation project, when you thought you were just replacing the leaky sink, now you're suddenly standing in a gutted kitchen debating what color the new cabinets should be.
The flume was repaired in early 80s, and it was okay, but the decision was made, my gosh, if we're going to replace the shaft, we got to take the wall, the facing wall off, and we have to remove the water wheel. Let's just go ahead and address the whole thing. That way we're good for another, hopefully 50 years, 60 years.
With the rebuild, the wood on the flume came from McCormick's Creek. After the horrible tornado hit that park, they were able to find a positive use for the wood. Finding a new main shaft was a challenge, but that solution was also from estate property.
The shaft is 26.5 feet long. The finished cut on it was 30 inches in diameter. To be able to find a tree that's standing, that the diameter is big enough that you can get it to a finish cut on both ends at 30 inches. They found it. It was over in Yellowwood State Forest. Our friends in Division of Forestry helped us cut it, and it was shipped to Madison, where it cured for a while. Then we shipped it to Louisville, to the millwright.
And from Louisville, it made it to Spring Mill. Now, the biggest question of all, when will it all reopen?
The mechanism, everything will be ready by mid-January, I think. But it's too cold for us to try to operate, so we have to wait for a little while. Now, if the weather cooperates and, we get sort of a nice 40, 50 degree days, we may try to test it just to make sure it's working okay. But what we're looking for is...
Oh no, the audio must have cut out. What a bummer. Just kidding. The truth is, at the end of December, Mark gave me a time frame. It was assuming that everything was perfect. But life happens, and between weather, parts, and making sure it all works the way it's supposed to, the park isn't ready to announce an open date yet. But I think we're getting really close. Tom's excited to get grinding again too. And you can buy cornmeal at the park.
Well, because what's happening with the corn that is being milled here? Is it being sold?
Yeah, we sell it.
That makes sense.
Well, come on down and I'll grind you some.
There we go. That's really cool. And then you just have your cornmeal.
We do what they call a medium grind. It's not powder. We have recipes on the bags.
Perfect.
Along with the mill, I was surprised to discover the top 2 floors of the building are also a museum of pioneer life in Indiana. You'll see books from the school, farming equipment, beautiful old quilts, furniture, doctor's tools, a loom, and much more. Outside of the mill, you can also explore the rest of the pioneer village. And it's no wonder this was such an important place to settle. Not only is it beautiful, it's full of natural wealth. Between the springs in the ground and water flowing from the cave, there were great resources available for pioneers. Tom noted this as well.
Yeah, it's not hard to imagine people living here, using the summer kitchen, doctor's office.
Don't you want to go listen to the springs babbling and flowing so happily?
When is the village usually open for people to come?
Usually, it's not a whole lot going on in the end of March. It depends on how they want it, but April to about the end of October.
Okay.
The village has the original post office and mercantile. There's also a carriage house, blacksmith shop, and the original doctor's office full of herbs. In the village, there's also an old printing press that sometimes people can try out. You'll see a little hat shop and the school. The schoolhouse had a main door, but since it was a little higher up a hill than the Hamer home, The school also had a trap door with a covered path to it. In bad weather, the kids could use the covered walkway and come into school from the floor. Kind of cool.
This is the original building. It was a schoolhouse / nursery, a hospital.
One room, literally one room schoolhouse.
So yeah, and they would have probably had gathered their kids around the fireplace in the wintertime.
So the kids would come in through this?
If the weather was
door?
bad, probably, yeah, they would have
fun.
right here. They would have had it open. The kids would come in.
So smart.
From the school, we walked to the tavern where you could sleep on the floor for a dime, or you could pay a quarter for a spot in the bed. Farmers who brought their own corn to grind at the grist mill might have had to wait a day for their turn, so the tavern was an option, especially if the alternative was sleeping under your wagon. Tom also took me into the old distillery and explained how the park is planning to get it operating again. So if you're a whiskey drinker, this is for you.
So the plan is to actually be able to sell?
Yep. See the pipe coming out of the bottom of the flume?
Yes.
Actually, back in the day, in the 1800s, the early 1800s, they had water coming in off the flume, the clean water, spring water, further still. And that's what we're going to do again.
What's the timeline for this?
I'm here in the end of next year.
So be paying attention for, is there going to be an official name for it?
They're not for sure on that
Okay.
yet. So yeah, they'll set all this up. They've got more to put on it. Now, part of the interesting thing about this is that big pot over there. That's original, one of the original pots from the 1800s. I'm trying to think of his name, Alan Bishop. He's a master distiller down at French Lick. He actually scraped that and got yeast growing from the 1800s. He said it won't be exactly like the whiskey back in the day, but it'll be close.
I'm not much of a drinker, so I'm not the target audience, but if you are and would like to be involved with the restoration in any way, reach out to the Friends of Spring Mill. They've been working on tracking down a few key items to get the distillery functioning again, and some of them are a little pricey. After walking through the village, Tom and I went up the trail along Mill Creek to Hamer Cave. It's really cool to see the dams, one that Lehigh uses for their cement manufacturing process, and the other that sends water to the flume and mill. You can't go into Hamer Cave, but it's a pretty little walk along the creek, and that's how Tom and I wrapped up our morning. Now here's a peek behind the podcasting curtain. Usually when I'm at a park or doing interviews, in the back of my mind, I'm trying to find the story. What is it that unites all the different features? At Spring Mill, there's caves, the woods, the mill, and an astronaut. How did it connect? But then, towards the end of our time, Tom and I were more casually chatting, and it all started to fall into place.
There's a little bit of everything here for you. You got the village, you got history, you can talk mechanics, you can talk physics, go to the nature center and fish, and you can go and see Gus Grissom and see a spaceship.
There's a lot.
Come down here where spaceships wasn't even thought about. So
that's true. The things they were dreaming about and trying to invent and create here, and then to think some of the science and physics that's here, and then the science and physics that you see in an astronaut's life, that's pretty crazy.
And if you look at it, it overlaps. I mean, all the physics here, that's where they learn how to, to use torque to turn a wheel with water, then how to stop the vibration. And then you move into, okay, we got this much torque on this wheel, and and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, now in the spaceship we need, you're basically using the same thing.
That is cool to think about. Yeah, it is. It's how are you channeling different sources of power to accomplish different things, whether that's a mill or getting out of the atmosphere.
Yeah, this mill, when it's running, is 600 pounds an hour. You take the shaft, it's got to be balanced and trued, and
I would guess that they also keep their nose to the grindstone quite a bit in the
keep
space
nose,
thing.
Yeah.
Well, especially because what happened with Gus Grissom's thing was such a tragedy that it's easy for one small thing to go wrong and there to be tragic results in either of these situations.
And the same thing here. You put your hand in the wrong spot and you're going to lose an arm, or
Tom's tour of the village and mill helped me see the ways technology and innovation have always driven us. The mill was able to feed more people, generate revenue, hire employees, and keep a village thriving. But as Tom said, there's always an element of danger with any machine, whether it's a 200-year-old mill or a NASA spacecraft. After I talked with Tom, I met Mark at the Gus Grissom Memorial and learned why it's at the park.
The Grissom Memorial is dedicated to Gus Grissom, one of the original 7 astronauts.
Gus Grissom was born and raised in Mitchell, Indiana. As a kid, he fell in love with flying while building model airplanes. He was in the Air Force, then graduated from Purdue with a degree in mechanical engineering. I don't know if he spent time at the park, but I think he would have loved the inner workings of the grist mill. Later, Grissom served in the Korean War, flying 100 combat missions. After being invited to learn about the U.S. space program, he went through a series of tests and was eventually chosen as one of 7 Project Mercury astronauts. In 1961, he became the second American to fly in space on the Liberty Bell 7. In 1964, he became the first human to fly in space twice in a spacecraft he called the Molly Brown.
And what a lot of people still don't know is that we've actually got the spacecraft that he went up into space the second time, the Molly Brown. It's actually here. So when you come here, you actually get to see something that has been in space. We've got the suit that he wore when he was in the Molly Brown. And so that's a real treat for folks that they just sometimes will miss.
Isn't that cool? I asked Mark, did NASA regret letting the park have the Molly Brown?
I think that's one of those where they probably are kicking themselves a little bit. I think they were glad to get rid of stuff back in the early 70s because they were probably really cluttered and they just didn't think about it. Nowadays, the real significance of Gus and, especially the Molly Brown has hit home. And I think they feel a little guilty because they did loan it to us and we want to keep it. But
they have enough others, spacecraft,
they got
I'm sure.
Plenty of other stuff.
Grissom continued with the space program until his tragic death. During a pre-launch test, the Apollo 1 caught fire, killing Grissom and 2 other astronauts.
When he died in the fire in 1967, right away they decided to do something. And so the legislature came up with funds. State said, well, best place to put it is right here in this park. It's just 3 miles away from the town. So they built it in 1971. It was dedicated.
While the park doesn't shy away from his death, they spend time focusing on his childhood.
What we try to do here is talk about Gus as a boy a lot. We have his report cards.
I saw those in there. I thought, man, I hope I've never done something so famous that they're going back and digging up my 3rd grader report card.
Well, especially when you look at some of the grades he received. But it's a good story. It can tell kids today, listen, don't get frustrated. You're not going to be great in everything you do. Just work hard, stay true, and you can do great things.
Grissom wasn't afraid of what it took to achieve greatness. There's a plaque at the museum with a quote from Gus. It says, "If we die, we want people to accept it. We are in a risky business, and we hope that if anything happens to us, it will not delay the program. The conquest of space is worth the risk of life." Mark also spent time with Grissom's parents who lived in Mitchell. He shared one of his favorite lessons he picked up from them.
Probably the one story that has impacted me the most is when I first got here, Mitchell would bring their 4th grade kids out here. And his parents were still alive. His parents would meet the 4th grade classes out here. And the kids would be sitting around on the floor in the memorial. And the parents would just tell stories about Gus as a kid, about their age. That had an impact because it just drove home that he was just a normal kid, no different than any other kid you see walking off a school bus. And look what he did.
Anyone can have a positive impact, no matter your age or elementary school grade. It might not be as global as Gus's, but that's okay because impact is impact. You never know if a bridge you built will be used 100 years later, if a machine you use to make a living will be studied in the future, or if your life will inspire generations of people to search the skies beyond our own. We're driven to create, invent, refine, and take chances on the future. Sometimes life pushes back and we don't know why or how to move forward. Why is it snowing in the summer? How will I feed my family? Why did the Apollo 1 malfunction? But the human spirit adapts, mourns, learns, accepts risks, and tries again. The grist mill and the Grissom Memorial are testaments to the ways technology and creativity constantly push us into the future. They're separated by time, but joined by engineering and ingenuity. And how cool that we can see both of these incredible advances in the exact same park. A massive thank you goes to the Spring Mill staff who shared their time with me. Thank you so much to Mark Young and Tom Wade for spending almost your entire day with me. In the Parks is not officially associated with Indiana DNR, but more than ever, I am so grateful for all the work they do for our parks. Please share this podcast with your friends and give it a positive review on your favorite podcast platform. You can follow along on Instagram and Facebook at In the Parks Online for more state parks content. Be sure to visit the Spring Mill State Park website to learn about all the fun events in the Pioneer Village. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you in the parks.